All right, so the next, they're very similar, similar enough. So I'm just going to use those, what we just did. Uh, Copy, move down. Could be smaller. Let's take a look at that. Yeah, let's see. I just was wondering how these connect, like in this position. They're kind of straight. I like that. And then at least here, there's a different angle. I like that too. Um, so we'll see what we could do. Maybe we can, well, move this back a little bit. So this one, copy, or should we, what are we, these are all about the same too, except for the little one. So let's just copy this one. Um, Comes down lower, so what are we doing? This is a little longer, a little bigger. So we gotta, all right, so copy that. Ordered a book today. It was a compilation of comic books by John Buscema, um, who drew for Marvel, and he predominantly drew Conan back in the 70s and 80s. And the reason Conan is those comics are decent is because he doesn't wear a costume really. He's mostly, I wouldn't say nude, but I mean, it's like he's on the beach or something like that. He wears just a loincloth type of thing, like Tarzan. And so the point of that is like John Buscema got to be really, really good. You know, um, he could draw the figure quite nicely, and so he could do it from his head. But you could tell where they used references and where they didn't. And really, he didn't really need to use references. What happens is when you have a career like that, you draw every day. You know how you're going to draw certain things. Um, it just, by repetition, you get it down. So where something may have started out as a reference, you know, he used a particular reference to do the hand in a certain position. Um, he just repeated that. He memorized it. So I guess that's the point. Those are people in the industry that do this. They have memorized the figure and they do it. And what's weird is when I went to art school, we're going to repeat. We're going to repeat. This one looks a little bit more like this. So I'm going to repeat that. But when I went to art school, there was no acknowledgement of that, really. it was just kind of secretly talked about, uh, art teachers, students would secretly talk about, oh yeah, I look at comic books, or I collect comic books, or I used to, or this and that, or that's my reference, or that's what influenced me to do this. Now, it's very commonplace. That's like people, you couldn't talk about that in art school. You could never admit that you had anything, that you knew that comic books existed. And so it was all about Michelangelo and looking at Michelangelo's drawings. And honestly, that's not always very helpful. That's very discouraging if you want to know the truth. There are parts of Michelangelo that are great, and we'll talk about that. But the drawings are very overwhelming when you're trying to learn uh, the way he drew, because there's cross hatching there, and the contrast, the high contrast, and so you're having to kind of struggle through a lot of other elements to understand if you're just trying to learn how to draw the figure. So my point is like we should have embraced uh, comic book arts more than we did. It never happened, and that was a mistake. Um, we had even somebody in the class that worked for Marvel at the time, and he could have gotten work for anybody. He tried to get work for one classmate who actually was ready to go, good to go, but I don't know what happened there. The guy dropped out of our program or something like that. But he was our classmate was a colorist. He did great color work for Marvel.